Since the invention of the printing press, there's been a battle to control disseminated information. In the early 1900s, oil tycoon John D. Rockefeller took control of every newspaper and news editor of his era. He became America's first billionaire, paving the way for the power-hungry ever since.
Shalom, like give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakudash, like give double honors to our apostles and elders of great millstones. Salutations to all you sincere brothers pushing this word out across the four corners of the earth. Just a quick lesson going into remember who controls the narrative on mainstream news. You have all this different madness going on around the whole world with this so-called pandemic, COVID-19. You have these different stage shootings, these different stage protests, and it's all publicized around the whole world. But as the hopeful elect of Yahweh Yahushai, we supposed to see past these different lies that these elites are using to control and manipulate the masses. And we always got to question two things. Who controls this narrative? And what group of people are controlling this narrative? That goes into Esau, Edom, which are the so-called Caucasian race today. And more so, that's beginning with the heads of Esau, Edom, the shadow government, the so-called Illuminati. So we always got to be mindful through the spirit who is controlling this information that's being pushed out across the whole world. And this is from Edamon Online for propaganda. And just to get to the point, it says meaning, material, or information propagated to advance a cause. So when you propagate something, you are circulating, you are spreading, you are publicizing, you are broadcasting. So what machine that these elites use to spread, broadcast, or circulate their cause? That's going to all these different social media platforms, from the TV and all these different social media platforms we see on the internet. And that cause is going right into Job, the 5th chapter. How these elites want to use their hands to perform that enterprise, which is ultimately talking about that new world order. So as them being that shadow government, those hidden hands, they are those puppeteers, and they are using these different social media platforms, mainstream news, all these different puns that work for these different organizations and corporations, and they are being controlled by the elites, and they are bought and paid for to do and say what they need to say to fulfill this new world order agenda. And it leads me to the book of Genesis, the 3rd chapter, and the 1st verse. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord power had made. And that serpent is referencing Esau. And that same spirit, as we see how this serpent has beguiled Eve in the garden, it's that same spirit inside these Edomites. And subtle means to be devious, to be sly, crafty, or cunning. That's what a serpent is. So that's how we know via the Holy Spirit, when it's mentioned in the book of Psalm, the 83rd chapter, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. And also in the book of Psalm, the 64th chapter, how it says they encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune or land snares privily. That's talking about these elites, that shadow government, how they get together in their different Bilderberg groups, United Nations meetings. They have these different global pandemic exercises, and they all commune together how to overtake the world even more. So now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord power had made. So these Edomites are more subtle than any beast, meaning all these different nations compared to Esau or Edom, they are not on that type of level as Edom. And he said unto the woman, yea, had the Most High said, ye should not eat of every tree of the garden. And that's going to all these different philosophies, all these different ideologies. And that's what Esau does today. He uses those enticing words as being that serpent, and he can really get over a lot of people. That's why you see this whole world right now are in tune with social distancing, wearing masks everywhere they go, even when they are in their own cars by themselves. Or if you cough or sneeze around a person, they look at you funny because they are programmed by what they hear or see on mainstream news. And that's nothing but witchcraft done by these elites. And it leads me right back to Edamon Online for Medium. And just to get to the point, it says, many of the secondary senses are via the notion of intervening substance through which a force or quality is conveyed. And it says intermediate agency channel of communication. So media goes into medium. And what these elites use on their left-hand side with their witchcraft on the mainstream news, they channel spirits, which is like a passageway on their left-hand side, dealing with the spiritual realm, working with Satan. And by that, they use that negative force or vibration amongst the whole world. And that's why these people are so in tune with what they watch or hear on TV or read on these different social media platforms. And they are all possessed by these elites because they are being channeled on their left-hand side, which is nothing but witchcraft. What they are doing, they are conjuring up demons amongst the masses. And these people are all in tune with what they hear and see. So they are all a part of it as well. These elites, they get off on that because these people are putting their energy and all their different vibrations amongst these lies what these elites are publicizing out here. That's why they refer to their different TV media or news or different radio stations such as telecommunications, because they are communicating with their left-hand side. And notice they also use a category called broadcasting because they are broadcasting spells amongst the masses. Everything is spiritual, but you have your right-hand spiritual dealing with Yahweh, Yahweh Shai via the word, and you have your left-hand spiritual dealing with Esau, with his enchantments, with his sorceries, with his witchcrafts. So when we see these different stage events, these different false flags, such as this so-called pandemic, these different stage shootings, and now in the news you have this guy Walter Wallace from Philadelphia, all these people are nothing but stage actors or fulfilling their cause for the elites. But what Esau does, he make it seem like it to be real. It's an illusion. So as the hopeful elect, we supposed to be the children of light via having that eye salve, the Holy Spirit, and we supposed to see right past through these different lies and manipulations. And this is Isaiah 47:12. Stand now with thy enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth, if so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. So this is going to the elites, how they're still going to be using that left-hand side to keep them in power, but not knowing that it's Yahweh, Yahweh Shai that controls that left-hand side to allow these different demonic forces to work for Esau with the different sorceries, enchantments, all that different witchcraft. So Yahweh, Yahweh Shai being sarcastic by saying, stand now with thy enchantments, because these different enchantments has been working for Esau by the power of Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. And that same power, Yahweh, Yahweh Shai, are going to be the ones that disappoint the devices of the crafty. So that's why it says, stand now with thy enchantments. So Esau actually thinks he's going to fulfill this new world order entirely, but not knowing that Yahweh is going to send back Yahweh Shai to upset their new world order and bring his new world order, which is their righteous new world order. And that's why Esau is known as the daughter of the Chaldeans. If you research on history of the ancient Chaldeans, they were heavy into witchcraft and sorceries and all different type of enchantments on their left-hand side. So as being the daughter of the Chaldeans, referencing America, ran by the elites, Esau, Edom, as it says in the book of Ezekiel, the 16th chapter, as of the mother, so is the daughter. So they follow the same steps as the ancient Chaldeans, heavy and engulfed into sorcery and enchantments. Now, I looked up this word from Edamon Online for illusionist. It says a conjurer, magic act performer. And that's exactly what this shadow government or these elites are, nothing but illusionists. And by the means of their mainstream news or that machine, they conjure up lies and manipulations to perform witchcrafts and enchantments amongst the masses. So with these elites of the Edomite nation, being those magicians, they have mastered their craft. And that's that witchcraft. And right here it says deceiver, deluder, referring right back to Job 9:24. The earth is given to the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof, meaning that he has deceived the whole world, and everybody except for the elect of the nation of Israel are following suit of this white supremacy. Hence Christianity, Roman Catholicism, Esau's democracy. So that's being a deceiver. And that's how we know through the spirit this is referencing to the Edomites, who are the so-called Caucasian race today. And this is Nahum 3:1. Woe to the bloody city. So death to America, known as Babylon the Great. And I can go on for hours how this place is being a bloody city on the physical aspect. But just spiritually, how this place is being bloody. Look how America just lie and manipulate, pushing out their democracy, their dogma across the whole world. That's why it says it is all full of lies and robbery, the prey departing not. So by lying and robbing, those are sins according to the scriptures. And as it says in the book of Romans, the 8th chapter, the wages of sin is death. So that's what we know through the spirit, what's coming to America. Death, bloodshed, agony, pain, and the list goes on. So woe to the bloody city is all full of lies and robbery, the prey departed not. Going right back to what I said previously, whenever we see something going on in the news or mainstream news or social media, and Esau just constantly pushing it out there, I always remember two things. Who's controlling this narrative? And what group of people are controlling this narrative? They always gonna lead right back to the tabernacle of Edom. More so, the elites, which are those hidden hands that's pushing out all this propaganda around the whole world, having the whole world being deceived. So this situation going on with these different false flags, these different stage shootings, this so-called pandemic, it's all propaganda to fulfill that cause or that enterprise, which is going to this new world order. But through the spirit of Yahweh Yahushua, we know that the deceived and the deceiver are his. So at the end of the day, Yahweh Yahushua are the master puppeteers of these elites. They control everything, and they have Esau performing the acts that they want them to do. So remember, just stay mindful of that through the spirit. And remember who's controlling the narrative when it comes to this mainstream news. And with that, hope y'all be edified by this video and by the next video coming up. Shalom.
Thus began the gold rush for the modern world's most precious resource, the narrative.
Do you have any people being paid by the CIA who are contributing to a major circulation American journal?
During a Senate committee investigation, it was revealed that the CIA had been conducting a covert operation to infiltrate and control U.S. media. They called it Operation Mockingbird.
We do have people who submit pieces to American journals.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
Over 3,000 CIA contracted and trained operatives were placed in key positions within top media outlets. Posing as editors and journalists, these well-paid actors never dared to question the effect of their lies on the world beyond their cozy studio.
How often does the CIA manipulate the media in this way?
It goes beyond your wildest imagination. Setting up student organizations so they could draw radical students in. 5,000 university professors co-opted to help the CIA manipulate people's minds. Journalists in the U.S., including big-name journalists, co-opted to function routinely to help the CIA put out stories and biases to the world.
As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will.
It's a great brainwashing process to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
Would you say that continues today?
Well, I would think probably for a reporter it would continue today, but because of all of the revelations, I think you've got to be much more careful about it.
So how do we know that Operation Mockingbird still isn't in effect? Well, we don't.
It was the Telecommunications Act of 1996 that opened the door for predatory corporations to monopolize the industries of print and broadcast.
This bill protects consumers against monopolies. It guarantees the diversity of voices.
Today, a handful of corporate empires own and control the vast majority of everything you read, hear, and watch. From the biggest movie studios, television and radio networks, newspapers and magazines, to the vast universe of internet news and entertainment sites.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy while still delivering those packages to your doorstep. The company is keeping its employees safe. Keeping its employees safe. The company is keeping its employees safe. Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Americans staying at home. Amazon.
And that is how it works. It's like a house of mirrors, where you're seeing the same thing over and over and over again, except it's distorted.
There's an industry that is paid to go after and target journalists, whistleblowers, and inundate our consciousness and the images we see to try to ruin, destroy, or smear the idea that they don't like or the person who's delivering it.
You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic.
News personalities are not the only high-paid actors to serve the propaganda machine. Most late-night talk shows are owned by the same corporate overlords and thus follow the same script, only laced with a laugh.
Our main story tonight concerns conspiracy theories.
Last Week Tonight with John Oliver featured a skit entitled Coronavirus Conspiracy Theories.
It's like the claim that the moon landing was faked.
First thing to note here is that Mr. Oliver opens with commentary about conspiracy theories that are completely unrelated to coronavirus. This is a standard tactic used by propagandists to set a tone so that anything that follows will be seen through the lens of absurdity.
Plandemic, a pseudo-documentary filled with a hodgepodge of conspiracy theories.
Mr. Oliver then does his best to debunk Dr. Judy's claim that she was arrested but never charged with a crime.
She was absolutely criminally charged.
This was not an oversight, but a blatant lie. Prior to the taping of this episode, Mr. Oliver had the official arrest documents that clearly prove that Dr. Judy was never charged with a crime. Mr. Oliver then attempts to debunk the idea that a beach, aka nature, holds any value in boosting our body's natural immune system. Instead of challenging the point with science, he kills it with a smear.
Everything that you just said is insane.
Television is not the truth. We deal in illusions, man. None of it is true. But you people sit there day after day, night after night, all ages, colors, creeds. We're all you know. You're beginning to believe the illusions we're spinning here. You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion. So turn off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.